So good evening, everyone. My name is Don Kortz. I'm Academic Dean here at Rockford Lutheran, and glad to welcome you to our event tonight to talk about all different aspects of college planning. We'll talk about some of the scholarship and financial aid components of it. We'll talk about the course selection, the college selection, and acceptance, and all those sorts of steps in the process. Hopefully you found some good materials that are there for you too, to provide some details that you can take home with you and that sort of thing. Also pleased to have with us tonight Elizabeth Groves, who's here from the Illinois Student Assistance Commission. She serves the Rock Valley College region here, all of the high schools in our area, and is really our expert tonight on everything having to do especially with the financial aid side of college and FAFSA, as well as the college application elements and college decision plans and those sorts of things too. So we're thankful that she's a resource. She'll be here the whole evening. She'll feel free to jump in if there's something she needs to share. You guys are obviously very welcome to, let us know if you have questions as we're going through a topic like that, and we'll be around afterwards to answer any questions you might have at the end too. Let's begin with the word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we're thankful that you blessed us this night with the opportunity to get together and talk about such important things, because God, there's nothing more important to us than our young people, our children, the families you blessed us with. God, may this be an opportunity for us to learn and grow and be prepared to equip these young people to find that path that you've laid out for them, and help us to encourage and grow them to be the disciples you've called them to be, that they can go forth and be your light in this world. In your name, amen. Okay, so we're going to talk about, okay, this happened the last time. My clicker all of a sudden doesn't work whenever I get ready to start the show. So give me a second. I'll try to reboot it again and see if I can get it to work this time. Well, try again. Wow, I am not having good luck tonight. When I do that, then it pauses my screen share. Well, let's see if we can make this go. Okay, so here's some of our topics we're going to be talking about tonight. Just the overall issue of what are we looking for as a part of the college planning and selection process. And obviously we see all sorts of key questions that need to be answered and important elements to discuss. One of the first of which is, we're here because we're making an investment in our future, investment in the future of our young people, investment in their future earning possibilities. But more importantly, as we look at that as a Christian school, we're really making an investment in their ability to fulfill the plan that God has for them, whatever that is. And that can be, college A, college B, college C, all sorts of things. It can be other forms of post-high school education in lieu of college, or it can be multiple college degrees. There's a whole gamut out there, but we're really here to make sure that we can help them really grow into everything God created them to be, so that they can accomplish the purposes that they're really gifted for, that they have a passion for, that they have the abilities for. That's what we're really looking to try and accomplish. One of the things I always talk about is reminding people of the fact that colleges are looking for graduates. They're looking for college graduates. They're looking for freshmen that they can bring in that they are pretty sure are going to be 4 years from now ready to graduate, go on to a career, go on to a further degree, that sort of thing. So when they're taking a look at your students, they're really looking for a good bet of somebody that's shown what their capabilities are being successful in the classroom, shown what their capabilities are and just being persistent and following through with the things that they put their mind to, so that, you know, down the road, 4 years from now, they're gonna have a degree, they're gonna be able to graduate. And those are some of the things that are really crucial to colleges, because those are the types of things they get rated on. And when you hear about things like the ratings that come out about colleges and U.S. News and World Report and those sorts of things, that whole issue of how many people come in as freshmen and how many leave 4 years later as graduates is really key. So they're looking for students who have proven themselves in a variety of different ways as likely to be good college graduates. We'll talk about what that means down the road. They're obviously going to be looking at GPA, because that's going to be an indicator of, you know, is this student ready to handle college level material. They're going to be looking at what classes did the student take. They're going to be looking at standardized test scores. Now we'll talk a little bit about that. One of the things I'll mention here real quick is we hear all sorts of things about standardized test scores and now being optional for so many institutions, and that's true. However, we also need to keep in mind, in many cases, those scores are optional for application. They're not optional for scholarships. Okay, so, you know, it makes a big flash on the news when we say that our university is test optional, and that's not a bad thing. But, you know, there's other things happening there, and in many cases, those same schools that are test optional for application still want test scores when it comes down to determining some of the nitty-gritty details of scholarships. So we need to think about those sorts of things too. And a big part of what we're looking at and what they're looking for is, what else has your student done besides just go to class? Because one of the things that's really key to the university experience is that idea of going someplace and really connecting and being a part of that community. Because those university admissions offices know that if your student was really a part of the life of Rockford Lutheran, they were involved in activities, they were involved in clubs, they're involved in sports, they're involved in music and drama and blah, 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 whatever it is, they know that the likelihood is that student's going to be involved in that when they come to the college setting as well. And their statistics will show them that if a student comes to their university and gets involved in something, there's a more likelihood that they're going to stay, that they're going to persist, that they're going to go from year to year, that they're going to graduate. So that's a big part of the application process as well. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that, but be thinking about that as, you know, we got 3/4 of this year left yet. And you know, there's opportunities, and some of you, you know, juniors and some are seniors and that sort of thing. So think about, you know, the time that you have left to kind of fill some of these gaps maybe, so that you've got that resume next year that's going to convince that college that, yeah, I'm a person that's going to come to your school and get involved and really be a participant. And it's going to be more than just going to classes. We'll talk a little bit here about the difference between a 2-year and a 4-year school. You know, we're blessed with having a really good 2-year school here in our area. Rock Valley is a great institution, offers a lot of really exciting programs, including, interestingly enough, a number of 4-year programs, because they've got that agreement with NIU. You can literally go to Rock Valley and get a full 4-year engineering degree without ever leaving Rockford. And you can go to Rock Valley and end up getting a 4-year nursing degree without ever leaving Rockford. So there's some real assets to that. But there still are some downsides to what the 2-year school situation is like. And some of that has to do with some of the options that are available. Obviously, there are not as many options as a 4-year institution. One of the biggest things that I share with kids as they're talking about the possibility of being at a 2-year institution is there's a very low percentage of people that graduate from a 4-year school having started at a 2-year. And, you know, some of that's just the idea of kind of like momentum. Okay. If everybody's here, and for the most part, people are here obviously for just 2 years, what are we going to do after those 2 years? Well, it's real easy for kids to say, oh, you know what, I've really had enough of college. I've got a fairly decent job now. I think I'll just stop now and just work. there's an awful lot of people that 10 years later look back on it and say, man, that was a bad mistake. I really should have gone off and finished that 4-year degree, because now I could be doing this instead of this, and et cetera. For some people, the 2-year degree is exactly what they need. It's all they need, and it's going to be perfect for them, and that's great. But there's a very low percentage of people that actually get a 4-year degree after starting in a 2-year school. And part of that is, you know, you go to a 4-year school, everybody's there for 4 years. It's just, you get caught up in that momentum. It's like, okay, this is what everybody's doing here. So yeah, I'm coming back next year too, just like everybody else is. So that's a helpful part of that culture, that environment for a lot of kids. So that becomes a key thing too. One of the things a lot of people say is that, you know, the downside of a 2-year school, it's just kind of like more high school. You know, I'm still living at home. Not that there's anything wrong with mom's cooking, but you know, I'm still at home and I just go to class, and there's really not much in the way of college life. So here again, this talks about the percentage of people that they graduate in 4 years and so on. One of the things that's really key to the process here are college visits, and that's a little bit tougher the last couple of years, but it still is totally doable. A lot of colleges are opening back up now and are available for college visits, so definitely encourage you to do that. And some of that can be, especially if you're junior level, you know, we're on our way to grandma's house for Christmas. Just pick a couple places along the way and just stop off and visit. Now, the campus is probably going to be a little empty because, you know, they're on vacation too. But in many cases, you can still find somebody in the admissions office that's going to be willing to see you and give you a tour and show you around. Or if nothing else, you can just kind of take your own tour and walk around and see what the campus is like. There's a big element of making that selection of just being there and just getting a feel for what this is really like. Had a lot of kids that you know, they'll go through and they'll look at a place online, they'll talk to the rep that comes here and are all excited about a school, and they go there and it just doesn't feel right. So there's that visit issue is a big part of it. So definitely encourage you to do that sort of thing. All sorts of important things to do when you are making that visit. You know, get the official tour, but kind of, you know, peek around a few other places too. One of the great places to go when you're on a tour is a dining hall. Make sure you go there, because that's where you're going to be able to talk to students, and you'll get the straight shot on what's going on there. So dining hall is a great place to hang out and just see what's going on there. A lot of times the admissions office will spring you for lunch too, so it's even a great deal that way. Take a look at particularly the facilities where you're going to spend a lot of time. If you're going into engineering, make sure you see the engineering building. If you're going into medicine, make sure you see the medical building. If you're going into science, make sure you see the science building, et cetera. So take a look at specifically the resources there where you're going to be spending a lot of your time. And at the same time, make sure you meet the people that are going to be a big part of that program as well. And this is where we'll talk a little bit more about, you know, the difference between small school, large school, that sort of thing. You know, the opportunity you have to connect with people is going to be one of the most important and meaningful experiences that you have in a college career. And so connecting with people that you know, you can kind of identify with and that really are concerned about you as a person is going to be a really key part of your success during those 4 years. Well, let's check in with some of those people now while we're making visits and get an idea about how things are going and how things are looking, because that's all going to be key to the future decisions that we make. Just want to make sure we're not losing somebody on our broadcast here. Okay, looks like we're okay. Make sure you talk to the financial aid people. There's a lot that can be gained from meeting with the people in the financial aid office and talking with the people that are part of that. We'll talk about that a little more later too. Talk about research program options. Talk about internship options that you have there. What kind of services does the college provide for doing internships as you get into sophomore, junior, senior years, those sorts of things, because those internships frequently become the first job offers. So having some experience and some service and assistance in developing some good internships is really going to be key for you. Find about their placement and acceptance rates. You know, there's a lot more careers right now that some of you are no doubt going to have kids looking into that are going to require more than just a 4-year degree. I talk about the physical therapy world because that's just changed so much. You know, 20, 30 years ago, that was a 4-year degree. And then 15 years ago, it was a master's degree. And now it's a doctorate. Okay, so there's there's a lot you need to be thinking about in terms of, okay, but if I go to a school that only offers the bachelor's degree in pre-physical therapy, what's their percentage of people that get accepted into a master's degree program or a doctoral program? You know, if that percentage isn't very good, that doesn't speak well to their PT program. So you might want to look for another school. The other thing to be thinking about there, and this is the case also with a lot of careers now, you can find schools that are going to enable you to enter as a freshman and be accepted as a freshman at the college, be accepted into the physical therapy program, which are two different things, and be accepted into the graduate school all at the same time. Now, the key advantage of that is once I get in, I know I'm good until I'm done. It's no, I'm having to worry about whether or not I get accepted into the program 2 years later, because that can happen. You can get accepted into Marquette, but you might not get accepted into the PT program after your sophomore year. Well, then what do? You know, that's a mess. So you want to look for direct admit programs where you go in as a freshman and they're going to admit you to the whole package because you've proven that you're going to be capable of that. Now you got to keep your grades up the whole time and all those sorts of things, but that's going to be a huge advantage to you if you're looking for especially some kind of medical degree like that involves a lot of extra education. Okay, I talk about distance here too. You know, nothing wrong with getting away from home. I know sometimes kids are most wary of that, but you know, it's a great opportunity to grow up and you learn a lot about yourself and you really mature a lot in that kind of fashion. And it's not all that bad for mom and dad either. You'll find also most schools, most universities do not take Labor Day, because they don't want kids leaving for a long weekend right after they get there. And so why? Because there's issues of them not coming back. And so, you know, that idea of dropping your kid off and leaving them there, they're far enough away that they're not coming home all the time. There's some real advantages to that, because that can keep them from really connecting into that university experience, and that can be a detriment to their going back. So there's nothing wrong with being far enough away from home that you know what, we'll see each other way down the road. When I was going to school, I grew up in Akron, Ohio. I went to school in Seward, Nebraska. It was back in the days of 55-mile-an-hour speed limits. It was an 18-hour drive. My parents dropped me off in August. I saw them again at Christmas. And that was okay. They thought so too. My brother did too, but we won't get into that. So things to look for. One of the things that is unique to each school is they kind of have their own culture. And for some of them, it's the urban school and the activity and the buzz of being in a city and excitement and, you know, lots of nighttime activity and all that kind of stuff. For others, it's being in a more of a rural, urban, spread out setting and just being kind of quiet and peaceful and that sort of thing. So, you know, and that kind of plays into just what the weekend culture of the college is like and that sort of thing too. So you need to check that out and experience that. Size and locations is huge. Obviously, you want to take a look at what the affordability elements are. And one of the things I always want to mention to people is realize some people come into this game thinking, you know, I spent all this money for 4 years of education at Rockford Lutheran. There's no way I can afford a private university now. That is absolutely not true. Okay, I can give you all sorts of stories about people that leave here and go to a private university and end up paying less than they would if they would have gone to a state school, especially in Illinois, because to be honest, the state schools in Illinois are not that cheap. Okay, so there's definitely some reality to that you can get some really good deals, and we'll talk about how as we get a little bit further into it. You know, take a look at how the acceptance rates work at that school and that sort of thing. And I talk about kids, you know, when I talk to kids about choosing schools, you know what, start with, here's my reach school. Man, this is where I'd really like to go. It's gonna be tough to get in there, but that's where I'd really like to be. These schools, I'm pretty sure I can get in there. It's not gonna be easy, but I mean, those are pretty solid. I think I can do that. And then here's my fallback plan. I know I can get into these anytime I want to. So think of it in like different levels like that. So you kind of get an idea for what's the acceptance rate at the school and that sort of thing, because that's going to be key. personality of the school, the culture, the campus kind of fits together a little bit. And obviously you want to be looking at the majors that they offer, making sure that there's something that you're going to be interested in, that you're going to want. I put this comment here at the top, this idea about school culture, it'll change you. When we were doing college visits for my kids, I had 4 kids, and one of them we went to, one of the university presidents met with the parents on visit day and that kind of thing. And they said, realize that your student's going to be here 24/7 for 10 months out of the year in some of the most formative years of their lives. Realize that the culture of the school that you select is absolutely critical. The culture of that school will change them. You just can't help it. It will help define who they are as a person. And so when I talk to kids about going and doing business, that sort of thing, I say, okay, you go there and you experience and see what the culture of that school is like, and see what those students there are like. And then ask yourself, is that what you want to look like 4 years from now? Because you will. That's the culture of that school, and that culture will change you. So, think too about what were some of the unique characteristics of Rockford Lutheran that drew me here. Why did we want our kids to go here? Okay, well, think about that in terms of what does that mean in terms of the kind of college experience I'd like them to have, and how that'll be beneficial to them. Some people get the idea that, and nothing against large schools. Obviously, there's some great large schools in our region, and there are some kids for whom that's absolutely the best choice, and that's great, and nothing wrong with that. But a lot of people think, okay, but coming from Rockford Lutheran, a little small high school like that, you can't, you're obviously not going to fit in real well with a large school. Absolutely not true. Because if your university's got 15,000 freshmen, you're not going to try to meet 15,000 people. You're not going to know 15,000 people. So what are you going to do? You're going to find your niche somewhere in that big university. You're going to find some place where you fit in. And in many cases, you're going to find it based on the types of things that you're familiar with, the kinds of things you're good at, the kinds of things you've experienced. Well, if you come from a place like Rockford Lutheran, where you could be on a football team and on the wrestling team and in the band and in the play, or you could be in the volleyball team and the cheerleading squad and, the orchestra and blah, blah, you've got a lot of experiences then to take with you to that university. So now you played volleyball all those years. Okay, so I'm not going to be in a D1 volleyball program, but I could be on an intramural team, might even be on a club team. Okay, and realize most universities have 3 different levels of athletics now. They've got their NCAA, then they've got club teams, and then they've got intramural teams. The idea is that becomes your group. That becomes who you connect with. That's who you're familiar with. That's who you're comfortable with. That becomes your group. And if you're at a school of 15,000 freshmen, or if you're a school of 5,000 freshmen or 500 freshmen, it's going to be the same thing. You're going to connect with a group someplace, because you're not going to butt around with 500 freshmen either. You're going to find a group of people that become your friends. So think about that as you think about the kind of school that you're looking at and the types of activities that they have and that sort of thing. On our website, there's a study that we have that shows some information about the difference between Lutheran universities and large state flagship institutions. And it's not so much a comparison of Lutheran versus state schools. It's really a comparison of private schools versus state schools. And it really gets into, okay, what are some of the distinctions about what the classroom experience is like when you've got 30 kids in your class versus 200 kids in your class. And you really do get to know who the professor is, and the professor does really know your name. And what does that mean in terms of the comfortability that I have of going and getting help when I'm struggling with something? And that becomes a big part of shaping the culture of that kind of school, because there's your connection with real people. And so think about that as you're thinking about the different options that you have, keeping in mind that it's absolutely doable in some very affordable ways to experience that kind of a benefit in terms of your college experience. Okay, so we'll talk about some steps that are part of the process of getting there. So this is all about the visit and what to look for and what you should be thinking about when you're selecting schools to apply to. And you should be comfortable with applying to tons of schools. There's nothing wrong with that. We've talked about Common App with seniors. We'll do that at the beginning of the senior year for your juniors and everything too. So we're getting into that part about, okay, so what are we needing to do to get into that process? Resumes are a big part of that. There's a form that we provide for people to kind of give some outlines in terms of what the resume should look like, what it should include. As juniors, you should start putting it together now, because you're probably already going to forget stuff from your freshman, sophomore year. Okay, but don't wait till your senior year when you need to be pumping the resume out to start putting it together. Start putting it together now. And we've got a form back there that helps give you some ideas about how to do that, what to include with it. So to give you an idea about what the timeline looks, especially for seniors, in the fall, you should be finishing the college selection process. Now notice I said seniors in the fall, you're finishing the college selection process. I've already told juniors, a year from now, your college search process is over. You come here in August, you need to be ready to start filling out applications, because a lot of the schools, their first deadlines have already passed. Okay, a lot of schools have November 1 deadlines for admissions. Now they'll accept admissions later, but you know, the bottom line is you want to put your name in when most of the seats are empty, and you want to put your name in when most of the scholarship money has not been already committed to somebody else. So the timing is really key. So there's no more search process when you come back as a senior. You need to be ready to start sending in applications in August and September and October, because November 1 is a lot of deadlines. October 15th even for some deadlines. November 1, November 15. I talk about Marquette sometimes just because they're local. A lot of people are familiar with them, that sort of thing. We've had a lot of kids that go there, so we visited there a lot, that kind of thing. They're going to have seats for 2,000 freshmen. By December 1, they're going to have 16,000 applications. If you're thinking about going to Marquette and you're going to fill out your application over Christmas, yeah, don't bother, because it's not going to happen. Okay, so you know, you need to be ahead of the game, especially if you're going to a school like that that's likely to attract a lot of applications. And here's the thing, as a lot of schools have gone test optional, more schools are getting more applications. So schools that used to get 10,000 applications are now getting 20,000 applications, but they still only have 5,000 seats, and they still only have the same amount of scholarship money to give away. So it becomes more and more critical that you get your name at the front of that line rather than later. There's also some grants that we'll talk about too that also run out of money, so we have to be concerned about as well. So you can retake the ACT, SAT if you need to in the fall of your senior year, because you will get some of those test scores back by October, November if you're taking it early. But you definitely want to get your submissions, the applications in right away, and the scholarship applications. Now, FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. If you're going to ask for scholarship money of any kind from college, they're always going to say, first you got to fill out the FAFSA, because the FAFSA is your avenue to getting federal aid for colleges. And what the colleges are going to want to make sure of, if you're going to qualify for a certain amount of money, they want as much of that money to come from the federal government as possible, so less of it has to come from them. Okay, so you've got to fill out FAFSA first. That's just the way it is. Now, the October 1 deadline for FAFSA is so that you get FAFSA turned in, you get your application turned in. Then when the college sends an acceptance letter back to you, they can also say, here's your acceptance and here's your financial aid package. Now you can compare apples to apples, the different schools that you have, because you've got an acceptance and a financial aid package from all of them. So that's the idea, but you need to get that going in October. Okay, it's already getting late for that now, here just in early November, because some scholarship programs do run out of money. Illinois has a MAP grant, which is a special grant for kids that are going to college in Illinois. It's a good program, decent money. It's only if you're going to an Illinois school, but sometimes they run out of money. So if you don't get your stuff in early, yeah, then you don't get it. Now, one thing I'll mention is when you're doing that, and this we talk about when we do financial aid night, is make sure you put down one of the schools you want to go to is an Illinois school when you fill out your FAFSA, because that's what gets you in line for the MAP grant. It doesn't matter if you go to that Illinois school. It's just that if you tell them you might be going to an Illinois school, they're going to set some money aside for you. You can change schools. As long as it's still Illinois, you'll still get the money. Okay, but you need to get the paperwork in before the money runs out. And then in the spring is when you're really focusing on scholarships. Winter and spring is focusing on scholarships. Some people were asking about some scholarships tonight. The Community Foundation of Northern Illinois is one of the agencies we're going to talk about. Great opportunity for getting scholarships. One of the things to keep in mind about that is the fact that those scholarships are really only for people like in this area, like Boone, Winnebago, Ogle County. So you're not competing against the whole world. Yeah, they're not huge scholarships, but you're probably going to get one. We've got kids every year that get scholarships from Community Foundation. So that opens up typically December, and there'll be information coming out. There'll be information I'll get out to people about that too, but you need to be ready for it when it comes out. But that's what happens. That's what happens in the winter, and then you make your college decision by April, usually at the latest. So on our side of the application process, just to let you know what part of it we're involved with, primarily has to do with sending of transcripts. Now that virtually happens all electronically nowadays. There's almost no sending of transcripts in an envelope anymore. It all happens on a system we call Parchment. And in the fall, I set up an account with all the seniors. They go through, they walk through how to do it. And from then on, that's how they send their transcripts. Now, the advantage of that is the state of Illinois pays for those transcripts up until August after you graduate. So you can get all your transcripts sent for free that way. It's just a really cool thing to do. But that's a big part of what happens at our end. I send a school profile, which tells the colleges what our school's like, what our grading scale is like, what our classes are like. One of the things I'll mention now is that we will tell people that we do not rank our students, because our senior this year in our class has, I think, a 3.56 GPA in the middle of the class, the middle of the senior class of the 3.56 GPA. And they're taking, I think, 3 college dual credit classes. Okay, the person in the middle of virtually any other school in this area is not going to be in that same ballpark. But if I tell them that you're ranked in the middle of our senior class, they're going to think, oh, that's middle of the class. That's not all that great. Well, yeah, but our middle of the class is taking college coursework already. So that's why we don't rank. And I'll send them a letter that tells them this is why we don't rank, because it's just not fair to our kids. There's a counselor recommendation form. That's also why you need to fill out that resume. Because when I fill out a recommendation for you, I want to make sure I've got all the background and all the things I can talk about, because I don't know all the info about the places where you've worked or the place you've done volunteer work in the community and that sort of thing. So that kind of stuff happens on our end. That's stuff that I send off to the schools for you. On the student side of that, most of your application is going to be online. And in the fall with the seniors, we sit down and figure out how to do Common App. Common Application is one application you can fill out and send it to like 800 different universities. And you only have to fill it out once. And tweak a few things, you can send it to a whole bunch of more schools. But it also teaches kids how to do the online application process. So we do that with all the seniors in August when they come back to school. You want to make sure that if you need recommendations, you talk to teachers and you're ready for that sort of thing. And you've kind of connected with a teacher that knows you pretty well so they can write a good recommendation for you, that kind of thing. Some schools want an essay, and we've got some resources to use to write a good essay and that sort of thing. And English teachers will be willing to help you with that, improve things and that kind of stuff. So plan on that. Some schools do have application fees, and some will have a sale. Like last month, all of October, Western Illinois University was no fee to apply. And there was a week towards the end of October, University of Alabama was free to apply. They'll just, it's kind of like a sale that they run. So look for those sorts of things. And then we do need to send test scores in many cases too. We always put the test scores on the transcript. Some schools want to get the test scores directly from ACT or SAT, and so you have to go through a special process to request that and that sort of thing. But that's not very common anymore. FERPA, just so you're familiar with what that means, as your student is going on to college, they're old enough to be considered an adult, and so there we go. They have a legal right to their educational information. And so if you as parents want to know what their grades are in college, they're going to need to sign off their FERPA rights to basically say, yeah, it's okay for the college to tell my parents what my grades are. And I tell the kids, look, if your parents are helping pay to send you to college, they deserve to know what your grades are, so you better sign that. So just so you know what that is. Here's some information for you about college essays, some things you can think about and so on that are just helpful to plan on. And this whole PowerPoint will be posted on our school website. So you don't have to worry about writing all sorts of things down. You can be able to see it as much as you want to later on this week on the website. But it just gives you some good ideas about some things that, you know, what's good to talk about, what's not good to talk about, how do I want to talk about it, what do I want to tell them about me. You don't want your essay to sound like your resume, because you already gave them a resume, okay? So you want them to get to know you as a person. So think of it that way. Okay. Here's some information about different costs for colleges. So here's a 2-year school. Here's a public 4-year, out of state, and a private 4-year. See, obviously that one's a bit longer. But you know, believe it or not, the idea of paying for college education right now is a lot like buying a car. Nobody pays the sticker price. And there's some information back there. I put out some forms from just various schools. There's one from GCU. There's one from Northwest Missouri, I think, and Michigan Tech and places like that, that they kind of send me some nice graphic sheets that show how their scholarship programs work. Yeah, you know, you can get thousands of dollars a year in scholarship if you've got a 2.8 GPA, depending on what school you're going to. Okay, so there's a lot of possibilities out there for scholarships. And one thing I always tell people is, number one, remember that the money's in the grades. Yeah, there's a lot of other scholarships that are available out there, but that the money is always in the grades, and what you're getting on your report card is going to be the single most thing that's going to determine what sort of scholarship availability that's out there. Because even if you're a prime athlete, I can tell you, and the AD will tell you the exact same thing. When we have recruiters that come here, they'll come into the AD's office and say, hey, you know, who's looking good on your football team this year? That's question number one. Question number two, what are their grades? Because something you need to realize is that when those athletic teams are offering kids an athletic scholarship, they know it's an investment, because that kid is not going to play varsity sport their freshman year. They're probably not going to play much sophomore year either. Those coaches know they're making a 2-year investment so they can get 2 years of good, you know, playing ability out of those kids when they're juniors and seniors. Well, they're not going to invest their money in somebody that's not going to be around their junior, senior year, because they've only got so much money to spend. And the other thing that they know is the college wants to get kids there that have got good grades. So if the college wants to get this kid here because they have good grades, and they also happen to be a good quarterback, the college is going to give that kid money for the good grades. Now the coach, they're going to give him some money for being an athlete too, but they don't have to give him as much, because the kid already got a bunch of money for getting good grades. So now the coach has more of his money left he can spend on a running back. So that's kind of how it works. So, you know, be thinking about what that means in terms of going home and doing your homework at night. And, you know, and nothing wrong with shooting around with some friends on the weekend. But if you got math that you should be doing on a weekend, that's going to get you more money than shooting around. So think about that. We talked a little bit about FAFSA, and Elizabeth will be available to answer all sorts of questions on that. It's to be honest, if you've done the TADS program here at Rockford Lutheran, FAFSA is way easier. so don't worry about that. It really is a fairly easy process compared to what we do for what we have going now. Here we talked a little bit about just what some of the details of what FAFSA are. These are the websites that you go to get information about it. Actually, I need to update this because they've taken away the draft registration now. Basically what you do is you send them information about income and assets. You also send information about like how many people are in the family, how many other people are in college at the time. Those sorts of things qualify too, because they know that, okay, now you got to set aside some money for that stuff. Okay. So you figure all that kind of stuff out, and you end up with what they call the expected family contribution. That's what they assume that you will be able to, thank you, that you'll be able to contribute towards the cost of college, okay? And we'll see some figures on that in just a little bit. And the student aid report then is the report that comes out and says, okay, so here's what you qualify for in terms of federal government grants, federal subsidized loans, et cetera. So two types of scholarships. Those are the need-based, which is, again, where you kind of start with the FAFSA because it's all about what your income is and what your college is going to cost. And then there's merit-based, which is academic, artistic, athletic, et cetera, other abilities. So there's a lot of options out there for scholarship money that are, you know, and the benefit of this kind of stuff is you don't have to pay this back. This isn't loans. This is just free money. So those are the first things to go after. So this is kind of interesting. You know, we hear a lot about private scholarships and private foundations, that sort of thing, and there's a lot of money out there for that, but most of the money comes from the school. And that's where the private universities have an advantage over the public schools, because private universities with their years and years of alumni support and so on have endowments and foundations. And so they've got more money to give away than the state schools do, which essentially don't have any of those sorts of additional funds. Then there's grants, like federal grants. Pell Grant is the main federal government fund that's provided to help kids get a bachelor's degree. And then state grants would be something like the MAP grant that we were talking about before. We've got some info on just what those look like. So in terms of the amount of money that you can get, the MAP grant this year is going to be about $5,500. Again, it's only for Illinois schools, but you know, if you've got even it can be a state school or a pretty cost-effective private school that's going to give you, you know, $10,000 a year or something like that for some kind of merit aid, plus the private school maybe kicks in some money for need-based aid, plus you kick in $5,000 a year for MAP grant, let's say, and then there's almost $6,500 this year for federal grant. Okay, so you know that's how you end up being in a situation where private school is still very affordable. So some more than others, and it's going to depend on if you know how much that school wants your student, and that depends upon you know what are their needs in terms of athletics, what are their needs in terms of music. You know, one of the advantages that we have here is we've got a good music program, and there's a lot of kids that'll get easily $5,000 a year plus, and they don't even have to be music majors. They just have to agree to play in the orchestra or play in the band or sing in the choir, and they'll get $20,000. Well, that sounds like a pretty good deal to me. And it's not impossible to do that and be an athlete. Yes, you're going to be busy, but you know, if you get $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a year for being an athlete, you get $5,000 a year for being a musician, you get $5,000 a year for a MAP grant, you get $6,000 a year for a Pell Grant. You know, right there, you're over $20,000, and you haven't paid anything out of pocket yet. No loans or anything. So, you know, that kind of stuff is definitely doable. So there are also then loans, subsidized and unsubsidized loans. So subsidized means you don't pay interest while you're still in school. Unsubsidized means the interest will accumulate. And then there's other loans for parents. And those you can get up to however much money you need pretty much to go to the school. Now, those are not subsidized, and so interest starts accumulating right away, and interest rate might be a little bit higher. Depends on what your credit rating is. You can get these direct plus loans from the government, but if your credit rating is pretty good, you can probably get them cheaper somewhere else. So there's lots of good options out there for that. Okay. This is where we want to get into some things that are specific to students that are either a minority student or maybe a first generation student, that sort of thing. There are some specific scholarship opportunities out there for our minority students, and this is the kind of stuff I'm listing here that's specifically helpful to you folks. Michigan State University's got a really nice grant, national grant site here that you can take a look at, get some good stuff from. Here's some local sororities and so on. Here's the Community Foundation of Northern Illinois that I was talking about before. RAM, I want to talk about that specifically because this is just, I don't know if everybody's familiar with the RAM organization, Rockford Association for Minority Management. Awesome organization. I just love these people. Their main thing that they do every year is scholarships for minority students. And they give out usually 20 plus different scholarships. To be honest, it's not a huge amount of money, but the thing that I love about RAM is that the process that they go through, I think, is more valuable to those kids than the money, okay? Because first of all, they've got to have a decent GPA. I think it's 2.75 is what they have to have for GPA. Then they've got to fill out, they've got to, write essays, they've got to get recommendation letters, they've got to do all that kind of stuff. And they've got to go through a personal interview. I think that is the most awesome thing because who's not going to have to go through an interview when they're going to get a job? And those kids that go through this process with RAM are going to go into that first job interview thinking, oh yeah, I've done this before. I did it for my RAM scholarship back when I was getting ready out of high school. That I think is an invaluable experience for those kids. And for that reason, if nothing else, I encourage all of you to apply for the RAM scholarship. Now, this is a form from 2021. Their updated form is going to come out like in a week and a half. So this is here, and the website is here for ram-rkfd.org. But that information's here. You can find it'll be coming out in about a week and a half or so. If you're seniors, you can look for it down the road. If you're juniors, that sort of thing. But definitely encourage you to do that because it's an awesome organization. They have a great big banquet and bring in a guest speaker, and it's really a nice time. It's a great experience. So definitely want you to do that. Other minority scholarship awards that are available here, definitely want to take a look at. Got some information here on some HBCUs that certainly are great institutions for kids to consider, and obviously are going to provide some great means of support for kids to be successful there. Conditional admit means sometimes they'll work with kids that the GPA isn't quite what it might need to be for some other schools. And so they'll say, all right, well, the condition is you're going to have to work your tail off when you get here. We'll provide you the support to be successful, but you're just going to really have to work at it. Well, that sounds like a good condition to me if that means I get to get a 4-year degree and have a great career. So just some schools that fit into that category. Some of our state schools too have some special options for kids that are either first generation or minority students too. And we got some more details on that coming up. So I picked out some different types of special programs that some schools have. Like this is a big program for minority participation at ISU. A lot of universities have these kinds of special programs. I just picked a handful to give you an example of what they're like. So what you're going to want to do is, as your student is interested in this school or that school, this location, that kind of thing, start making contact through those admissions reps and find out what kind of support do we have for people that are first generation students or people that are minority students, et cetera. Because there's definitely some resources out there that can be helpful. And some of them are specific to certain careers and some of them are not. So here's one that's specific for teachers. This is a really good program for a lot more aid, again, for kids that are going into that. This is at Western Illinois University. Again, I'm just picking some random examples. This is a special orientation and kind of support program that exists for minority students at Western Illinois. Similar type of thing here at Luther College. They've got a center that advocates for minority students and provides support for them in a variety of different areas. Here's a whole list of other sites that have similar types of support, and I just again picked some that were fairly common to where a lot of our kids go. So here's a support program at Valpo. Here's some scholarships and support at Bradley. Here's a program for first gen students at Illinois State. Here's something else for scholarships at Illinois State, Eastern, Augustana, et cetera. And here's just some general resources for minority scholarships, and same thing here. So just those will be on the website. You can find them. A lot of places just to poke around and see what sort of things are available for you there. The Black Common College, the Common Black College app I mentioned about the Common App that we have all of our students do. This is specific to students that are African-American. They're going to be going to, could be HBCU, doesn't necessarily have to be, but it's a Common App that they can use there. And again, some other resources from Eastern and so on. And here's some of the other financial aid resources that are just repeated here too. Just general college search sites, career search sites, along with scholarship resource sites. And there's a lot of that kind of stuff back there on the table. So some stuff from FastWeb and here's some stuff from College Board and College Greenlight. There's some stuff back there on that too. And there's some things about my majors that are on our website. There's lots of resources on our website under Counselor's Corner, especially as juniors, you're thinking about what sort of things do I want to be looking for in terms of a major? What do I really want to do? We start talking about that when they're actually freshmen and do some more when they're sophomores. And so then start kind of turning them loose on that by the time they're juniors. But encourage you to look at those resources. Here's some ways for us to stay connected. We've got, here's our Counselor Corner information on our school webpage. We also have a Facebook page, Rockford Lutheran Guidance Office Facebook page. We get a lot of resources in from institutions that have scholarships, and we get a lot of information from universities that have special summer programs, support programs, programs for kids that maybe need a little extra help to get ready for their senior year so that they're ready for the first year of college, that sort of thing. I don't have a good way to disseminate all that, so we've just put it on our Facebook page. So, friend it, whatever, take a look at it on a regular basis. We just leave the stuff there from year to year. Now, there's not a lot of scholarship stuff there yet. That stuff's going to be coming in the next month or so. And in the spring, we'll have a lot of internship kind of stuff and summer program kind of stuff. But you can kind of thumb through the page, look back over the last year or so, you can see what kind of stuff's going to probably be coming up, because a lot of the stuff comes up every year. So you get an idea what to look for there. Remind.com. So I've got a Remind account for each of the classes. That's a way I can text kids about what's going on when the ACT deadlines are coming up, and when I sent some stuff out to seniors in the last couple of weeks about making sure you got your recommendation letters in because of the November 1 deadlines that a lot of schools have. So I use that as a way to remind kids about stuff. So make sure that they check their text that they get from me. And then there's the Illinois Career Information System, which is on our Counselor's Corner page. This includes ACT and SAT test prep. So one of the things I talk to kids about is, test prep, it works, but you have to understand why it works. Okay. Yeah. Huntington works. Why does Huntington work? Because they charge you a boatload of money. And for that boatload of money, your parents are going to make sure that you're there every Saturday morning to get that tutoring. And they're going to make sure that you're doing the homework that you're supposed to do from Saturday to Saturday. And they're going to make sure you fulfill all the expectations of that, because they're paying $3,000 for this program from Huntington. And yeah, that's how much some of them cost. But because of that, you're going to be spending like 50, 60 hours getting ready for this test. Well, guess what? You spend 60 hours preparing for any test. Is your score going to go up? Yeah. The issue isn't how much money you spend at Huntington. The issue is how much time you spend working on it. Okay. So on our website, we've got a program. It's from Peterson's. Peterson's was putting out test prep stuff for 50 years. It's all online now. They have you take a little test. If you're doing the ACT, you'll take a little English test, a little science test, a little math test, a little reading test, that kind of thing. And then they'll say, okay, in math, this is what you need help on. And then they'll start feeding you questions just on math. You can go to a bookstore, you can go to Walmart and buy a book for getting ready for the ACT, absolutely. But you're going to get the same questions everybody else does. If you do this, they're going to feed you the questions that you need because they figured out you're not very good at geometry. Okay, so it's a really helpful resource, but you need to spend 40 or 50 hours on it if it's really going to work. But it's free because we already paid for it for you. So, okay. There's the password about how to get into it. Okay. Elizabeth, they're all yours.
I'll just hold it. It's fine. So basically what ISAC does, I mean, we do a whole bunch of stuff, but what I do at ISAC is I'm part of the ISAC Core, which is a group of 80 to 100 of us across the whole state. And we are somewhat recent college grads. I graduated 3.5 years ago from college. So I was in your shoes not too many years ago. And that's kind of the purpose of it, is to help you through this, because we know what it was like just a few years ago. So I'm the rep for Rockford Lutheran, as well as several other schools in the area. So like I said, I'm just here to walk you through that financial process, that college application process, answer your questions, help you through it. But I just wanted to point out a few things as we were talking tonight. So the CFNIL, you mentioned this, it's the Community Foundation of Northern Illinois. Their application, it's the scholarship application, opens December 1st. It closes February 1st. So there's a 2-month window in there to get those applications in. It's a big, long application. It looks kind of intimidating, but it matches you to hundreds of applications. And again, they're just students here. So you're not competing against millions of students across the nation. So you have a much higher chance. Also, I've met with them several times. They say that every single year they have scholarships that go unclaimed. So that's free money that's just sitting there that you could possibly be getting. Even if you're not sure if you 100% qualify, just apply for it. You could get it, you could get lucky, who knows. Another thing with CFNIL, you can kind of be looking at their website because they're posting more information. But December 7th, they're having a virtual scholarship fair. Usually it's in person. What they're doing is they have a presentation from the foundation, also a presentation by me. As an ISAC rep, I'll go through the whole financial aid process, how to apply for all the aid that's available. That will be happening. They will have registration for that on their website, hopefully soon. But that is on December 7th, I believe at 7 p.m. It's a live Zoom link is what it will be. They also are going to have a bunch of videos from vendors who have their own scholarships. Those will be put up on the website either that day or shortly before that day as well. When it comes to scholarships, even though $500 might not seem like a lot, how long does it take you to do that application? I mean, like an hour? Who's making $500 an hour? I'm not. That's a pretty good deal if you ask me. So definitely take advantage of that application. It's really, really good application. When it comes to college experience, just to share a little bit of what I experienced, I did go far away and I was a homebody. So that distance thing with it being transformational, it really was for me. I was really homesick at first, but I couldn't go home on the weekend because it was too far and I didn't have a car on campus. But weekends is when I made friends. So yeah, that distance thing can be transformational. Additionally, I went to a small private Christian college because I knew that's what I wanted. I went to a huge high school. I didn't want to go to a huge college. And there was a bit of sticker shock with how expensive it was. But when it comes to your financial aid offers that you're getting, be paying attention to how much is gift aid, because if you're getting a lot in gift aid, you know, it might look like one school is cheaper for you because they've padded it with a bunch of loans, when in reality, another school could be offering you more that you don't have to pay back, which for me, that's what it was. And that's how I was able to afford a private school and not have to take out loans. Additionally, visiting, super important. For me, visiting that school felt right. Other schools, I could tell I just didn't want to be there. You really do get a sense of the culture there. And like you said, it's 4 years or 2 years or however long you're there. And that's going to change you for sure. Additionally, when you go to schools, if you choose to go to a Lutheran school, you know, you're at a Lutheran school now. Sometimes there are scholarships available for students, their legacy scholarships. I went to a school that was the denomination I grew up in, so I got a scholarship for that. That's free money I didn't even know that I could get. So that's something to be looking into as well. Get involved. I was super involved with choir when I was there. My friends now are the friends that I met in choir. I met my husband in choir. I mean, just get involved. You're going to learn a lot of great things through those activities that you do. And then I do want to just go into financial aid a little bit, and I have a few resources to share as well. If you are a senior or you are a parent of a senior, get that FAFSA done if you haven't already. Opened on October 1st. If you are a junior, you can't do the FAFSA yet. You'll do it next October. But what you can do is you can create your FSA ID. It's like your login. You can do that now. I still have the same FSA ID that I had as a freshman in college. So it stays with you. It's linked to your social security number. So if you're a junior, get that done now. Then you'll be ready to go next fall when you have to do the FAFSA. Parents, you can do that too, because one parent will need that as well. MAP and Pell, you talked a lot about this, but just the impact of those two together. If you're getting the full amount of MAP, which of course is limited and it can run out, which is why you do that FAFSA as soon as you can. But if you get the full amount of MAP and Pell together, that's almost $12,000 that you don't have to pay back, which is a good chunk of change, if you ask me. And then Mti Scholarship, that's not just Western, actually, it's the whole state of Illinois. So if you are interested in being a teacher, definitely a scholarship to look into. There's more info in this document. It's on that table up there. All of the programs that ISAC administers MAP too. But just something to note with MTI, be sure you want to teach. There is a teaching requirement after you graduate for however many years you received that scholarship is however many years you have to serve in a school. And if you don't meet that teaching requirement, it turns into a loan. So just important to know, make sure you want to be teaching after graduating with that scholarship. But otherwise, it's a really great program. And then just some other resources. My business card is also over there. Let me put this down. So this is the ISAC Q&A, also on that table. All this stuff is on that table. I just grabbed a few things I wanted to show. The number you will use is the 815 number. You just text your name. It's an actual person. It's not a robot that you're responding to. This is a program that ISAC has, where if you have questions about financial aid and you know, it's just a quick thing that you don't want to email me about or whatever, you can text them. They will follow you through your whole senior year into college. Make sure that you get that FAFSA done every year. Send out reminders for that. A really great tool. Additionally, I have the student portal Postcard here. A lot of great resources on ISAC's website. One I want to point out is the financial aid comparison tool for when you're getting your financial aid offers. So they can be kind of confusing. There's not a template or a one size fits all when you get those offers from schools. So this is a way to compare that. It's in the financial aid section here on this postcard. It'll allow you to plug in those numbers so that you can see what am I actually getting in gift aid, what's loans or whatever, so you're not confused by what schools are offering you. A lot of other great resources on there too. Scholarship engines, just financial aid planning in general. And finally, this green postcard. If you are a senior, I highly suggest taking this with you today, especially if you've not done the FAFSA. This is everything you need for that application. It's the 22-23 application, because that's the year you'll be doing your freshman year for school. You'll need your 2020 taxes. It lists everything out there for you. Backside is in Spanish if that is something that you prefer. Like I said, if you're a senior, take this with you. If you're a junior, the same information is going to apply, just update it to 2021 for next fall. But like I said, my business card is over there. So if you have questions now, I'm happy to take them. Or if you think of something later, sometimes all the information is a little too much and it's hard to know what you don't know yet. You can certainly email or call or text later as well. So do we have questions or?
Any questions? Okay, well, thanks everybody for joining us tonight. Beth and I will be here, or you know how to contact us. Her phone number's on her card. And she's a really great resource when it comes to answering some of the more nitty-gritty details of like FAFSA and that sort of thing, because she's studied that way more than I have. So, and you know, there's some complicated aspects of that. So she's a great resource for that. So definitely take advantage of her capabilities there. So thanks so much for coming. I encourage you to fill out one of those little forms. Just drop it off your chair on your way out, and I'll grab that. And God's blessings as you go through a really exciting time of life, kind of a challenging time of life too, but it's a fun time. It really is. I have 4 kids and they're all grown up and gone now. I did FAFSA for I don't know how many years, but you know, the college experience was fun for us as parents too. So look forward to it, celebrate it. Thanks for coming.